Okay, part 2. This is all about expanded definitions, also called an extended definition. It's got different definitions for what it is. But it really is all about looking at terms and the language that is used in your field and how it's maybe used in different contexts for different audiences. And I'm going to get myself all tongue-tied if I thought just don't go through this the way I have it written down, so just bear with me, okay? Every field that we're in has jargon. Well, you know, doctors have jargon. Even compositionists like me have jargon in our field as well. It's language that's specialized. The term jargon is not a bad word. It just means specialized language for a certain field. So you're going to be looking at the language of your own field. So you're going to decide on a term that's used in your field, and then you're going to dig around a little bit about it. You're going to look up the history of it, of the term, and where it came from, how it's used in different contexts and genres. A professional journal in your field, a professional journal in another field, a popular article, a blog. It can be anything. You're going to pick 2 genres and look at how the term is used. Okay, it's really up to you. And this is how we're going to go. And you're going to kind of compare how it's used and tell me what you thought about it. You know, kind of what you took from looking at how this word is used in different contexts. Bear with me, okay? Let's be clear when I start using an example. This is the format of it. There's an introduction that tells us what term you're investigating and why you chose that term. This part you can write up immediately, I mean as soon as you pick it out. This last part you probably can't do until you get the whole thing written, so don't worry about it, okay? At least not for the first week. Then there are these 2 big sections that are the sort of the heart of it. This is you define the term that is used in your field, give its etymology, which is the history of the term, and the history of how it's been used, and then find a different definition of the same term from a different source, right? And compare and contrast those different definitions, how they're like, how they're different. You know, you might be using one and then using APA to quote stuff. And then this is the investigation part, how it's used in specific sources. All right, so if this is the definition, your definition that you're used to, and a definition that may not seem, you know, like it's something that may make sense to you, but you've never thought of before. And then how it's used in 2 different sources. And this is when you get into the different contexts, right? The professional journal versus the layman's journal, the non-professional journal. So you say what the source is, how the term is used, what it means in that context and that audience. And then the conclusion part is sort of, what did you get from this? You know, how do you understand the word differently? Why does it change? You know, well, sort of what did you take from it? And then an APA formatted list of your sources. So I know this is clear as mud, as we say back home. So let me show you how it's going to work. All right. So for example, introduction. I'm going to pick a term from my field, one of my fields, which is rhetoric and composition, and I'm going to choose the term rhetoric. Okay. So that's my term. So I got to look up a definition. So I'm going to go over here to Google and look up rhetoric definition. Okay. So I got lots of definitions here. I got lots of things. Definition. The best places to look for definitions is right here. Good old Merriam-Webster dictionary. Okay. This really gives you that definition that we're looking for. And you know, it's a good place to start. Be right back. Sorry, swallowing my tongue. All right, so this will give you a definition. What's really good about Merriam-Webster is it gives you what we call the etymology of the word. This tells you where it came from, you know, how it changed from the original maybe, and the first time that the word itself was used specifically. Okay, is the meaning defined. Right. So there's a little bit more in other places, but this will give you a good basic start. So this is a good place to get some history and definition and etymology. Another place to get good information about the history of a term is good old Wikipedia. Now, the thing about Wikipedia here is it will give you more than you want, but it also will give you a definition. Okay, so this is another source that can give you sort of the same definition, right? But then this has got all this long, complicated history, which there's no way in heck I'm going to put in this whole thing. But it gives you a good background on the information. Let's see if we can find, there's another another place. 14 definitions, because you got to find more than one definition, right? So we've already found the definition of language use and persuasive stuff. So here's one. Your dictionary talks of different ways people have defined the term rhetoric. Language that is elaborate, pretentious, insincere, intellectually vacuous. Devoid of emotion. Now that's interesting. Now that didn't come up in this stuff about the ancient Greeks. Guarantee it. It just didn't. So what if we now get our Google, go back up here to Google, and we do rhetoric as empty. I've been playing with this, you can tell. Rhetoric as empty language. Okay. Source watch. And so this defines rhetoric in a different way. Hollowed out words of empty promises, which is nothing like the traditional Greek definition of rhetoric, which is how messages are put together to create a specific response in an audience. This is talking about rhetoric as something bad, right? So here's a different definition. So I got my two different definitions. Now, if I'm really smart when I'm doing this, you can go on down here. Okay, here's an article about definition. Okay, here's another one. There's a bunch more. 5 powerful ways to beat empty rhetoric in speeches. Okay, now that could be used as one of my sources for the next section. That source section in context. This would be great. So I'd probably bookmark this and use this as one of my 2 sources in the context section. But again, that's up to you. It's just, that's the thing about Google, is you're always finding stuff you didn't expect to find. So just bookmark it, come back to it. You can use it later. But that's how to find the definitions, okay? So we've got now a definition. We've got a couple of definitions. We compare the two. So I'm comparing the formal definition as is used in my field, which means how messages are put together, and then this other definition, which means empty language. Now I'm going to talk about the difference between the two. Now, how did they get there? How did it go from how messages are put together to empty language and empty ideas? Well, I think about that. There's probably no right answer, but it's interesting to consider how the two of them are different. So compare and contrast with that one, right? So that's the definition section. The next section is the context section. Now you're going to do just what I did. I could pick a professional source. One of the professional journals in my field is called 3 C's, College Composition and Communication, or College Communication and Composition. Nobody calls it by that. It's called 3 C's. So, and there are always articles in 3 C's about rhetoric. So I can just pick one of those and, pull a quote up that talks about rhetoric, discuss what it means to that audience in that context. Now, since I know that that's a professional journal, I can say, well, people who read this probably already know what rhetoric means in the original term, and they're probably pretty aware of the secondary one too, because it's the field that they study. So we talk about that a little bit. They've ignored the empty language part in this one. They've only talked about it as something that we teach students, or how we analyze messages. Okay. So now my secondary source would be, I'll find that thing that I just found before from PR Journal about how to get rid of empty rhetoric. Rhetoric is empty language. Same thing. I give a nice quote that uses the term rhetoric, talk about what it means in that context and to that audience. So, and it's obviously 350 to 400 words, so you're going to be writing 150 words or more about each one of these. So you're really going to kind of dig into it and see how that term is being used and put a good quote in there. And then the last part is the conclusion, where you, like I said, you talk about, well, what did I learn from this? Well, I learned that, you got to be sure you know who you're talking to when you start throwing the term rhetoric around. Because if I'm talking to somebody and it's a political conversation, they're going to think I'm talking about empty language. If I'm at a conference, the 4 C's conference, which is College Composition and Communication Conference, then they're going to know it's about how we put messages together and how to analyze those messages. So that's what that part is for, right? So I hope that's marginally clear. I'm going to put this video in Perusall so that you can find it. It'll be in the library, so you can run back through it and stop and start it, or you can just do it here on the Open Lab site if you want to. But here's what we're doing for the rest of the week. So the first part of this week, as I said, we're looking at the 500-word summary. We're leaving comments for each other, and then we're writing a short memo about what we want to do to revise it. And then the second part of it is you're going to go over to Perusall. There's a thing right here called Writing Definitions, and it will give you more about how to do these definitions a little bit. Okay, this is a fairly long article. It's not long, but it's got a lot of stuff in it. It talks about 3 different kinds of definitions. A very informal, brief one, right? It's just what it is, right? The first time you use it in a sentence, you can use the word. Then you get a formal definition, and this is probably what you're going to be using in that section 2 with definitions. What the term is, what's its broad category, and the features that distinguish it from other things in that category. So, for example, with this one, a vacuum cleaner is the term. It's a household appliance. It's a broad category. And it uses suction to remove dirt. That's its distinguishing features. Right, so if I'm using rhetoric, I'd say rhetoric, my term, is a word from ancient philosophy and the study of language. That's a broad category. That is used to analyze how messages are put together and the effect it has on audiences. There's my formal definition of rhetoric in my field. Right? That's in my field. Here's some other examples. Here's a bad one and a good one. A chill pad is a device in a laptop, but it's not saying what the unique features are. Okay, so here's some of that. And then this is an expanded definition. So we're not really writing an expanded definition. We're just looking at how language is used, sort of expand our idea of what definition means. All right. But it's really good. It will also help you sort of figure out maybe how you want to write your own definition in that second section of the paper. This part, okay? So you can write this. This can be, I know it says 150, 200 words, but it can be longer than that, and this can be a little shorter. This is just sort of general guidelines, as they say. So if you want to write a longer definition of your term here, that's fine. And cut these back a little bit, that's okay. The whole idea is to get it up to 750 to 1,000 words, and to look at how those words are used. All right, so here's the article. Really, again, it's really short. I'll show you. Okay, so just look at it. It'll be useful for you. Like I said, I'm going to put the video, the lecture over here. You'll find it. It'll be down here. Video lectures, right? I don't think I put week 3 up because there wasn't much, but I'll put week 4 up here too. Okay, so that's the first thing you do, is just to read and annotate that. And then in the Google Drive folder, upload a draft of the first 2 sections of this thing into a folder, and you can put your name on it just like we did the 500-word summary. So what you'll be doing is you'll be doing a draft of these 2 parts. Now, the reality is you probably won't be able to do this part of this because you won't have done all your research yet. Probably. Hold on a second. Okay, I'm back. What I was trying to say was, for this first part that's due this week, you probably only can do this first part of it right here. Right? Put introduction, you set it up, just go ahead and set it up, right? To, from, date, subject. And then do this first part, upload that, and then upload this part. Right? And then when you're finished with the whole thing, you can go back and do this. But you can't say what you found before you find it. Duh. All right. If you do all your research before you write this, different story. But for most of us, the normal way to do things is to say, this is the word I'm using, this is why I chose it, and here are the definitions and the etymology and history. Right. So that's what's due, and that is what is due on Thursday the 24th, which is a week from. Like I said, I'm doing this on Thursday the 17th, so it's due end of the day on the 24th, which is a week from today. And that's all there is. And then next week we'll be doing the last part of this, the context and the conclusions. And that's all we'll be doing. I think that's all we'll be doing, and maybe leaving feedback for this in the next week. All right. So pretty straightforward. Again, if you have questions, go look at the video, go replay this, send me a message on Slack, and stay in touch and good luck. And I'll be putting up feedback on the summary over this weekend, so that you can also, don't let that stop you from going ahead and leaving comments for each other this weekend, which you're supposed to do anyway. So, all right, I will see you in a week.